Hi, everyone. Picking up on the topic of employee surveys, let's talk about the conditions in which you would conduct an employee survey. There's a range of contextual considerations that warrant some discussion. One of them is, what's your business like? We talked in other sessions about how business flows into, is acted upon, and flows out of an organization. But this could also mean, how long has the company been around? What's the history of even conducting surveys at all? How have things potentially changed in terms of complete reordering of leadership within the organization for whatever the reasons may be? What's the financial health of an organization? Have they come on the other side of a financial crisis, or are they in a trough right now and the finances of the organization are fairly dire? What's the overall cultural health of the organization? What's the level of trust, genuine trust within the organization? And then the extent to which a company has put focus on their culture and define its mission, vision, and values, and actually lives and breathes those. Or maybe they just introduce those into the organization. Now they want to get a sense as to what extent are we actually operating under these defined cultural elements. So there could be any combination of things. It could be as practical as, are we losing people more frequently now than they were before? And thus, if companies haven't been conducting surveys or conducting exit interviews upon departure, here's an opportunity to introduce that best practice into place. You have to do the ask. In fact, often the way I describe this type of work is, you want to look at leading indicators and lagging indicators to determine where you are in terms of employee commitment. The leading indicators are employee survey data points, because that data you have a chance to act upon. It's a leading indicator in which you can make purposeful, intentional steps to to get yourself to a better place in response to employee feedback. The lagging indicators can provide you a, a bit of data on whether there are surfacing issues that an organization wasn't even aware of and they need to take action on. Or it could be a means by which you can validate the data you're hearing on your leading indicators is supported by people who choose to leave. It reinforces the fact that certain issues require attention. They must be acted on, and apparently they're not being acted on to a point of effectiveness. Leading and lagging indicators. And if you really want to be on your game, and if you're a company of a certain size, you can do longitudinal exit surveys. Longitudinal exits are a way to go back to employees who chose to leave your company, voluntary departures, and ask those individuals, reach out 60 to 90 days after they've left the company. They may be safely ensconced in their new job, and ask them an abbreviated set of your exit interview questions. And if you also do employee surveys, you may have a set of core employee survey questions that are fed into your exit surveys and are again represented in your longitudinal exits. It's interesting what you could find from your longitudinal exit surveys. After someone has been away from their company experience for 60 to 90 days, now they have a chance for reflection. Was the grass not always greener on the other side? They realize, you know what, I had it pretty good where I was. Well, you have a chance to recover that employee and possibly help them find their way back into the company if you find that you really want them. And you have a chance to ensure that you have confidence in the accuracy of the data of leading, lagging, and longitudinal data points. Oftentimes, what we learn when companies do longitudinal surveys, the issue that surfaces more is around leadership. The further removed they are, they feel safer to talk about the reasons why they struggled with leadership. And we've said in other sessions that employees oftentimes join companies and leave managers. This could be a way in which you can discover whether leadership rises as a cause for concern in your longitudinal surveys. So there's some best practice ideas for you on how to collect data through those mechanisms. So all these things point to the rationale for conducting surveys and what they could look like. Business context, leadership context, change context, all matter. Now let's talk about timing. I mentioned in the introductory uh, session on this topic that I tend to like conducting surveys on an annualized basis so they can line up to the business year. It reinforces an understanding for all employees that we have a fiscal year we're responsible for performing to. And the employee survey is one other means by which a company can work to improve itself by having data to draw from. So, why not conduct an employee survey towards the end of your fiscal year? Say the beginning of Q4, conduct the survey, analyze the results, announce them at the beginning of Q1 of the new fiscal year, commit to take action on the top 2 to 3 issues that emerge. So that's my push, my strong recommendation for you to consider conducting surveys on an annualized basis. Aligns to the fiscal year, gives you a full 12 months to act upon data. You can then analyze again and address the outcomes. Let's take another approach to the rationale and the conditions for conducting surveys. I often work with early to mid stage companies, and this can mean that companies have few headcount in their early stages. For instance, I'm working with a client company now that has around 30 employees, and they conducted a survey for their employees. My struggle with this organization conducting a survey of only 30 employees is, first of all, is it truly warranted? If you are locally based and you have employees that are actively coming to the work site on a day-to-day basis and they run into each other, they work closely with each other, it's a small company, everyone can see the results of the impact of their work, and hopefully if they feel good about this organization, then it has its own form of energy and culture going for it. And the survey is a chance to dig a bit deeper. But why have a survey? Why not have an open conversation with employees? And that can come in a variety of different forms. If there's high trust among leadership, you may have leaders that manage 2 to 5 to 10 employees and with a little outside help so that they do this in a rigorous fashion, they can collect the data in an open fashion. Employees can hear their colleagues talking. They create a setting for high trust and high interest by having those open forums, those open discussions. Then the next logical step is to have a broader conversation with employees to find out what's working and where could we improve. Now, of course, if things aren't necessarily going well and you want to understand what's the extent to which you have issues in your 30-person organization, then yes, you may want to consider conducting a survey, but keep it simple. Don't try to break down demographics. What I mean by that is don't try to determine who's a people leader and who's not. What organization do you work in? What's the nature of the job that you do? And so forth, because employees will pull away. They feel like that's too close to getting to me. What if you have a larger international organization? The company has a base of operations in one country and they have significant locations, a presence of employees in other countries. That's inherently a difficult challenge in even creating a cohesive culture. But companies still may even more so want to know the extent to which employees are engaged, feel connected, and are committed to their work and to their company and to the leader whom they report into. So, yes, conduct an international surveys as long as you have a relative sample. In other words, if there are only 5 people working within an office, I recommend not conducting a survey among 5 employees. Think of it this way: if 2 of those employees have extreme views on either end, and 3 have relatively similar views, now you only have 3 data sets. Does that really represent a thematic outcome for that organization? That reinforces the notion and the value of conducting open discussions in localized organizations such as these. And what can be done in that case is that the larger mothership conducts a survey. It's translated to smaller organizations in remote areas so that it becomes more of discussion points where the data can be collected, provided back, and merged into the larger survey work for those bigger organizations. No matter what, developing local champions to take into account the unique cultures represented in each organization. And when I say cultures in this case, I mean ethnic cultures that are very unique to the country of origin, and how surveys often may get misinterpreted. So, having those local champions to help with the interpretation of survey intention will help ensure that you have effective data. So, those are a range of conditions, and there are many more to consider on how you launch into conducting your surveys. I hope you find this helpful. Stick with me. I'll pick up on methodology and survey design in our next session. Thank you.